His passion for reading, it's contagious. And I'm just gonna tell you guys, like, no joke, I would find every excuse not to read. I'm too busy, I need to do art, I have to make dinner, I need to work in my garden, oh, I have to go out with friends, whatever it was, I could find a reason not to read. Hey, it's Kate. Welcome to my classroom. Okay, I know I don't typically film from my classroom because one, it's haunted. I'm gonna stop at Target. Oh, yeah, my room's haunted, I think. And two, I'm usually doing work in my classroom, so I don't usually film from here. But I recently got an email from a fellow teacher tuber by the name of Colby Sharp, and he's such an inspirational educator if you don't know who he is. And I read his email, and he had said I'd really love to do a collab. World Read Aloud Day is just around the corner. I believe it's February 1st. And I'd really love to do a collab video with you. And I was like, yes, of course, I'd love to. I really look up to Colby as an educator. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's amazing. His passion for reading, it's contagious. And I'm just gonna tell you guys, like, no joke, I would find every excuse not to read. I'm too busy, I need to do art, I have to make dinner, I need to work in my garden, oh, I have to go out with friends, whatever it was, I could find a reason not to read. And I just have been so inspired by Colby that I have started to read more, and I've already read 3 books this year, and I'm working on a 4th. And that's a big deal for me, like a big deal. But the idea on this collab was that we read 5 books. We suggest 5 books that we read aloud in our classrooms. So these are books that either I am currently reading or that I have read in the past that I adore reading with my kids. And of course, you know, I can't get through read alouds as fast as some other teachers because the reality is that I teach at a dual immersion international baccalaureate school. So that basically means that I have my students every other week. So it makes it really difficult to get read alouds done. So they're, you know, so we do what we can, but I definitely wanted to pull out 5 of my favorites. The first book I actually had never read. So I do this. I'll take books out on a whim, like either I've heard that they're good or they've won some sort of an award, or I just know, like, from other, you know, people, they're classics and they're, you know, great. So I know this is gonna be a shocker, but the first book that I'm gonna share with you is Little House in the Big Woods. Yes, I know, I've never read this book. It's hard to believe. My students love it. That's the thing, right? That's the thing. When you have a book that was written as long ago as this was written and students still are drawn to it, that is the sign of a good book. I wish I could read the entire series to my students, but one of the cool things about reading the first book in a series is it gets the students excited to want to find out what happens in the rest of the series, and they love this book. They randomly were asking me the other day, like, are we ever going to finish that? So this one I would highly, highly recommend. The kids are loving it, and it's a classic. Come on, it's Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's a classic, and it is well worth taking the time to read to your students. All right, book 2. This is by far one of my favorite authors. I love, love, love this author, and it is Roald Dahl. And I specifically pulled out The Witches, although you really, honestly, you cannot go wrong with any book by Roald Dahl. They're all winners. Like, The Twits are great, The Witches, fantastic. I love it because it makes the kids, like, wonder, you know, like it talks about adults, and then I'll like kind of try to mimic the things that they're saying that the witches do, just to kind of mess with my kids a little bit, you know, so just to kind of have a little fun with it. And they really enjoy this one. They think it's fantastic. So anything though by Roald Dahl, like, you can't go wrong. He's fantastic. Okay, this one I read last year to my students. You already know now. So this is book 3. And I read this last year to my students. It's a book in a series. It's called The Vanishing Coin. This is a fantastic book. The kids like it. It's written at like the perfect level for them. So it's not a difficult read. It's not an easy read. It's just right. And one of the things that they love about it is that they include, let me see if I can find, they include for you, when they talk about the magic trick, they actually include how to do it. So the kids get really excited, and a lot of times they'll be like, wait, I need that. So I'll make copies of these pages so the students can practice at home. But this book was one of those that I picked up on a whim, and it's funny because I told Kobe I'll do that, and he was like, you pick books up on a whim? Like, I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's always seemed to work out for me, usually. But as far as kids' books have gone, it's only not worked out in my favor once. And I didn't finish reading that book. But the book that I chose, now look, I'm justifying. The book that I chose is a great book. It's The Great Gilly Hopkins, but the problem is it's definitely not for 3rd graders. So there's that. So anyway, this one though, definitely for 3rd graders. It's a fantastic book. All right, book 4. All right, this one still has the price tag on it. I'm gonna take that off. My students, you know, when Scholastic comes, they buy us stuff. All right, this one here is by Kate DiCamillo, and it's Flora and Ulysses. I love this book. I love it, love it, love it to pieces. The students also really love this book. And it's written really well, and the graphics, it's like part, you know, the illustrations are amazing, but then it also has that graphic novel feel. So it's kind of a mixture between the two, right? Like you have the novel portion, and then you have some parts that are graphic novel-like. So like this would be an example. But if you're, you know, if you know Kate DiCamillo, you know this stuff that she writes is fantastic. Fantastic. This is the same author that does Tale of Despero because of Winn-Dixie. I hope I'm right. But she's fantastic, and the kids, they eat this book up. They love it, they love it, they love it. It's a fantastic book. It keeps them interested the entire way through. And for book 5, which I've already mentioned before, I read this at the end of the year to my students. I love this book. I randomly went into the bookstore and I was like, oh, this one looks good, and I picked it up. And I have been reading it ever since to my students. It's called Fake Mustache. This is a phenomenal way to end your year. It's a funny book. It's told in from two different narrators, and it's just really done well. If you're like on the fence about any book, this would be my ultimate choice. That's why I picked this one last, but it's just done really well, and it's all about world domination. I mean, who doesn't love a little world domination? All right, you guys, so those are my top choices for read-alouds. What are your read-alouds? What are like your go-to books that you read? I'm just so curious to know. What are they? For me, I feel like, you know, there are definitely going to be those ones that I read every single year, and there are others that I am trying to get students excited about a series, so I'll read the first one and then have them read the others on their own. And there's just some that are just staples, you know, or classics. So Anyway, leave down a comment down below. I would love to know what you are reading. Are you going to participate in World Read Aloud Day? I definitely am. I'm going to be Pinteresting that. And yeah, now that you've finished watching my video, definitely go over and watch the others, because I'm sure that it's going to be so cool to see what they've put together. And before you leave, hit that subscribe button and the bell. All right, you guys, and you know what? I'm gonna be a little demanding. Share it up too. All right, you guys, I think that's it. From the bottom of my heart to yours, bye. Yes, I can do it without a calculator, and you will be able to do it shortly without a calculator too. Right? Like,